What is up, Pope Nation? Welcome to a brand new ranking list. We're talking the MCU. We're in our 17th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is insane to even think that we're at 17 films in this big overarching movie franchise, comic book. It's great. I love the cinematic universe. It's one of the coolest things that movies have been starting to do, and I'm just so happy with that the Marvel universe has been working out the way it should be. But with that said, I have my list. I just saw Thor Ragnarok. That will be included in here, and I haven't done this in a while. I haven't done it since last year with Doctor Strange, but I just want to stop talking. I'm just going to get straight into this and start ranking off this. This is going to be a heavy video, so grab some popcorn, grab the closest MCU movie you have, hold it dear to your chest, and hold it and be like, man, I cannot wait to hear his list. But make sure also to comment down below and tell me what your guys' ranking is for the MCU, because that's what I want to hear. I love talking about that. I want to see what the differences is between my personal list and your guys' personal list. So make sure to comment down below. And also, if you're new, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, because I love doing ranking videos. I always do ranking videos, top 10 videos, and even reviews. So let's get into it. Down at number 17 is going to be Iron Man 2. Now, even at these lower bottom MCU movies, I still find them enjoyable, to say the least. I don't think they're horrible films by any means. And Iron Man 2 really just gets boggled down by the story. It's really much just a setup film for the Avengers. It's really how the story is structured, because half the movie is Tony having to deal with Whiplash and Sam Rockwell's character, and then the other half is the Avengers Initiative with Nick Fury and Scarlett Johansson. And then it kind of overweaves in some sections, but really, like, that's what the film is, and it felt very rushed, to say the least. It didn't feel like Jon Favreau really got the time to even think about what to do with the next film. But I will say, though, I like Whiplash's character. I thought Mickey Rourke was a pretty entertaining villain. Not the best, but pretty entertaining for the scenes he was in. And of course, RDJ as Tony Stark, he's fantastic as him. Happy Hogan's great. Gwyneth Paltrow is great as Pepper. I mean, the cast is always great in the Iron Man films. There's no doubt about that. And the action sequences are really fun. I mean, that's what Iron Man 2, it had a lot of fun sequences in it. But really, the story is the one thing that really boggled this movie down, by to say the least. I think the really cool thing about this film is this is the film that really introduced Black Widow, and this is the first time we get to see how kick-ass Scarlett Johansson is. And Black Widow's turned out to be one of my favorite characters in the MCU, and I want to see more of her. I actually would want a solo film of her. And really, just after this film, I was like, man, I want to see more of you, and that's what I like about this film. I think it introduced cool aspects to this world, and obviously this is the most forgettable one now, just because it's so pushed back, it's so long ago. Now we're so 17 movies down the MCU. There's better films to watch than this, but I will say it's still an entertaining time. Just really the story setup is the thing that really just crushed the movie overall. Coming in at number 16 is going to be Thor: The Dark World. But yeah, I actually find this film to have some pretty enjoyable action sequences. I think Alan Taylor really puts his stamp on the action sequences, and there's some of them are actually the best in the MCU. But again, the film is boggled down by a very generic story. Not even set up for a film. This is just a very generic story. It's like they didn't know what to do with Thor, so they're like, let's just throw this, and introduce an Infinity Stone. That's how we're going to do it. And the story is boggled down by the relationship aspect between him and Jane Foster. It's boggled down by a villain, which should have been great. I mean, Malekith is played by a fantastic actor from The Leftovers, and goddamn, it should have been better. Malekith should have been better, and he's just a horrible villain. Just boring, he's just meh. And that's how really the whole story is. It's meh. Really, if it wasn't for the action sequence in here, and the characters, of course, like Thor, Loki, Odin, Heimdall, or even Lady Sif and her group, the film would be boggled down 10 times more. But with the characters actually saving this film, that's the reason this film somewhat works, and you can at least have some fun with it. It's just really, this is like this is another forgettable MCU film that no one really thinks about. There's no memorable moments in it, but you kind of just think to yourself, that was fun, but I'm probably never going to watch it for a while. And that's how I was. I've only seen it twice, and it's alright, I guess. Like I said, the action sequences are pretty entertaining. The look and the feel of Asgard is there. Like I said, the romance, the story, the genericness of all that, it just boggles the story down and kind of makes this to be one of the weakest films in the MCU. Coming in at number 15 is going to be The Incredible Hulk. Yes, I actually really enjoy this film. Now, the weird thing about this film is when I rewatched it this past week, it didn't feel like an MCU film. Like, it felt like the only reason this was an MCU film is because Robert Downey Jr. appears in the end credit scene. That's really the only thing I can say about the film is that it doesn't feel like an MCU film, which in some ways might help the movie in some ways, and other ways it might not. I did actually like Edward Norton as Bruce Banner. I thought he was a very entertaining Bruce Banner. Now we have Mark Ruffalo, who I actually do enjoy a little bit more, but I thought it would have been interesting to see where Edward Norton went with this group after this film, especially with the Avengers and even Thor Ragnarok per se, because it would be interesting to see what they did with the actor. But like I said, like, he was fine in it. General Ross is great. Again, the romance aspect, it's not there. I don't believe in it, but I will say the action sequences in the Hulk are fantastic. That last fight scene between him and Abomination is great. It really is the definition of Hulk smash. Coming in at number 14 is going to be Captain America, the First Avenger. Now, let me tell you about this film. I only saw this once, like, a while back, and I thought it was fun and enjoyable. I liked how they brought it into a World War aspect. I thought the war was really fun. Like, the action sequences was different from what we were getting from other MCU films, and that was really enticing to see. I like when films do that, and they brought it in. Just like how Wonder Woman did it this year, I think Captain America was awesome in that right there. And especially with the director on here, I actually like the director and what he did with this film. It felt like you actually got that patriotism and that hope. And really, Chris Evans signing onto the role for this first film, I didn't know what to think at the time, because he was Fantastic Four, and then after that he really did nothing. But then he comes in and he's Captain America, he gets all buff for it, and I'm like, man, this could be entertaining. Turns out to be, he's literally the best part of this film. Like, Chris Evans is fantastic as Captain America. I honestly can't think of anyone else being Captain America at this point, because Chris Evans is so defined into that role, and he's perfect in those roles. You find it in here. Even in this first film, you see him kind of getting that niche of him, but he's great. And so is Bucky. I mean, Bucky is fantastic, and also I find Red Skull in this film to be one of the better MCU villains, which is a lot to say. I mean, Hugo Weaving plays Red Skull, and he's fantastic. Red Skull, I want to see more of Red Skull. I think he deserved more because he was so damn good in here. I mean, it was really entertaining to see what Red Skull was doing and just this whole plot and stuff. Really, the only con I will have for this film, like, coming up to this list, my only con really is that montage sequence where it really skips a lot of stuff, and I wish it kind of paced it a bit better, because that's where the pacing kind of felt just really rushed towards the end, and it's like, okay, so you're just trying to end the movie, and I get it. And for me, it never jived with me, but like I said, I think the action sequences in here are fantastic. Chris Evans is great, of course. Bucky Barnes, I mean, what are you going to say? Sebastian Stan plays a fantastic Bucky Barnes. Can't forget to talk about Peggy Carter. I mean, she's great. This is one of the few romance that I actually do believe in the MCU, and I actually love that aspect. I like her dynamic with Steve Rogers. I like seeing their dynamic back and forth. I also want to mention the humor in here and the score. Two different things, but the humor is great in here as well, and the score is actually one of those more memorable MCU scores. Now, that's not saying a lot since the MCU really has forgettable scores, but this is one of them that actually did work for me. Coming in at number 13 is going to be Thor, the first one. Yes, this is the first Thor, and this is directed by Kenneth Branagh, which Kenneth Branagh is a fantastic director. And really, I think if I didn't rewatch this film this past week, I probably would have dropped more on my list, because this film, to me, when I watched it before, was very boring and just not fun. But then when I rewatched it, I was like, man, there's some pretty incredible action sequences in here, and they still hold up. All the CGI does very well. And of course, this is the first time watching Chris Hemsworth as Thor, and even seeing Tom Hiddleston as Loki. And it's cool to see how different it is, because you see how brooding they both are and how dark they are at times, but you also see that, like, you can kind of tell that they're still getting a feel for their characters, and I love seeing where they have progressed now into the future, because they're so different. Like, Thor Ragnarok is pretty much a reboot of the whole Thor franchise with some things in there, but really this is the setup for this whole world. This is where we're introduced to our characters, where we're introduced to Asgard, which is this mythical realm, which is very different from other films that we've even come to see before, and it's magical. I loved what we see in Asgard, but the one thing that boggles this film down is it goes to Earth for so long, and this is the whole romance aspect with Jane Foster and all of her friends. It made for some good comedy and made for some good elements at times, but really, Thor should be up in Asgard or up in space and all that, showing off that world. And I think that's why, like, the further movies down the road where it kind of got into that more, that's why those work so well. Because given, you don't want to see Guardians of the Galaxy go to Earth and not fly around in a spaceship. Yeah, going to Earth would be pretty cool, but if you go in the Earth in the first one, it's like, you're kind of disappointing me there. But like Thor, like I said, it has some good action sequences. Kenneth Branagh really directed this film and had really great themes of father and son, father and brotherly love, all that stuff. I absolutely loved what Kenneth Branagh brought that theme into this, because not a lot of MC movies have those themes, and of course, this film has one of the best villains, Loki. He's great. He's literally still one of the best villains in the MCU. Maybe you want to argue with me and say, well, he's kind of more of a hero at this point. Maybe he's going to turn to the good side. I don't know, but at this point in time, he was a villain, and he's still one of the best in the MCU for this film. I thought Loki did great. Chris Hemsworth, of course, as Thor is fantastic. And I mean, the first Thor is really enjoyable. It's, again, one of those films in the MCU now where in this little ranking list, it's at number 13. This is some of the films that I don't mind rewatching. I actually really like this film. I'm glad that I got to rewatch it. And if you guys haven't rewatched this, I think I'd check it out again, see if maybe if your opinion changed. Coming in at number 12 is probably the most diverse, controversial film in the MCU, and that is Iron Man 3. Let me just say this. I absolutely really like Iron Man 3. I think even last year when I did my ranking list, it was a bit higher. The reason I've kind of pushed it more lower now is because I've rewatched them again, like I said, and for me, Iron Man 3, again, is one of those films that doesn't feel like it's in the MCU. It really just feels like a Shane Black film, which in parts is not a bad thing. Besides the whole Mandarin twist, which you can kind of like get a feel for, but besides that, I think this film is really fun and entertaining. And I mean, this movie is great. I think this has some of the best dialogue in the MCU overall. Like, just the banter between Tony Stark and that kid is great. I just love hearing their banter back and forth. It's great overall. I love seeing that. Like, that's some of the best things. And then Guy Pearce's villain he's fine. Again, the MCU really never has great villains, and he doesn't really add to it, and neither does the Mandarin. But I absolutely love their romance. They're the one couple in the MCU that I actually do believe in. Like, the humor jives so much with the banter and the chemistry between all the characters in here, and that's one of the really good reasons I like it. I actually like the action sequences in here because they're different. We don't see Tony Stark in his suit a lot. We see him actually fighting on his own and being smart, having to use his brain, which is something that the first Iron Man kind of helped us see when he was in the cave building the Iron Man suit. It's very intriguing to say the least, and I love seeing that aspect of this film. And I also gotta say, I love how they dealt with Tony's PTSD in here. Now, it's kind of annoying that they just kind of like wiped it under the floor after this film. Kind of like, it felt like this film never really happened in the franchise once Avengers Age of Ultron came out. And it kind of is annoying to say the least for that, but I'm not going to like nitpick that too much, because I'm talking about this film, and I found Iron Man 3 to be quite enjoyable at times and absolutely a lot of fun. And really just that dialogue is what makes this film strive so long in Shane Black's direction. Some people might not like the Mandarin twist. I think it's fine. It doesn't bother me as much, but I absolutely do like Iron Man 3. Coming in on number 11 is going to be Avengers Age of Ultron. This is the film that, man, when I first came out of it, I was like, that's better than the first Avengers. How did they do it? How did they make it better than the first Avengers? And then you start thinking about it, and we're like, well, I don't need that story detail. I don't need this story detail. And really, the film could have been paced at a better pacing. There could have easily been like 30 minutes taken out of this film, or maybe even more added in to make some stuff make sense, like the whole Thor bathtub scene, or even Hawkeye's farm, which Hawkeye's farm is one of the best aspects of the film. But again, like I said, it's boggled down by a ton of subplot. Kind of split down the middle. I want to say I like Ultron as a villain, but I still wanted more from him. I think James Spader did a great job playing Ultron. I think we could have used more of him. I think we could have seen him be more menacing, and I don't think we got enough of that per se. But we did get introduced to Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch in here, and I like both their characters. I like the actresses and actors that play them, and I thought they did a well done job in Avengers 2. Of course, the story structure for this film really kind of makes the film fall apart, but I do think the action sequences in here are better than the first, and most of the MCU films, to say the least. It did go for a darker tone, but it also kept that comedic route. Plus, we even got brought in to see Vision, and Vision is a great character to add into the Avengers, and especially seeing what he goes through in Civil War, and I'm hoping to see what he does in Infinity War. Vision's great. There's great comedy with him too, and he's a badass, to say the least. I also want to say, like, they planted some seeds for Civil War in here, which was awesome to see. I think the one thing though I absolutely did like is that even though we went to Hawkeye's farm, I love that we got more of Hawkeye, per se, because Hawkeye's always been that one character that really gets nothing to do, and I'm glad that we got to see more of him in this film, because I think Jeremy Renner not only deserves that, but the character deserves it too, because Hawkeye's a really intriguing character, to say the least. Coming in at number 10, we're talking Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Yes, this is the second one, and I have a lot of fun with this film. I have a lot of fun with this film. First, coming out of it, I said it was better than the first one. On rewatchable, I don't feel that anymore, but I still think this is a ton of fun, and I will contend this is the funniest MCU film, at least for me. Is it the best MCU film? No, but I think it's really fun, and it really works again because of the characters. This is one of those films that I don't think the story really worked for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and I don't think it worked because there's so many different storylines happening at once. It felt like a TV show at times, that they didn't know what storyline to really focus in on, so they decided on splitting a couple characters up in different ways and giving them different stories. So you have like Mantis and Drax, Yondu, Groot, and Rocket, Gamora and Nebula, Star-Lord and his father. You have all these different storylines going out, and yeah, they interweave towards the end, but I didn't think it interweaved perfectly. But really, this film it's funny as hell. This is one of the funniest films I've seen this year. I was gut-busting laughing almost the whole entire time. James Gunn directed this again. I mean, James Gunn is one of my favorite directors out there, and he's fantastic at directing this film. Like I said, I think the story structure is really my only problem with this film, and then I actually do like Ego. Of course, Ego is this living planet that we get to see played by Kurt Russell, and Ego's a pretty intriguing character to say the least. I think some of his motivations don't go the way I would like it to go, which kind of ends up in being one of those bad MCU kind of villains, but I still like Ego. I think Ego's a very intriguing villain to say the least. And I like Kurt Russell's enthusiasm and charisma he brings to the role, because I think that's why Ego lives to be one of the better in the MCU, just for the fact of Kurt Russell being such a damn good actor. I will say, some people might find the humor to be a little bit distracting, but I have to say this is easily one of the most beautiful films in the MCU. The CGI just looks so seamless and flawless to me. Baby Groot is the smartest damn thing anyone could have ever thought of to put him in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I mean, I love Groot in the first film, but Baby Groot is 10 times better. I mean, Baby Groot is so adorable. Let's all agree with that. Rocket's great. I mean, the cast is all great. I love the new addition of Mantis in here. I like seeing more of Yondu, because I love me some Yondu. I think Yondu is one of the most underrated characters in this group. And also, some of the action sequences in here are so memorable, especially the last fight scene. It's funny, it's enjoyable, and it's crazy and kooky, but that's why the CGI works in here, because like I said, this is one of those, it literally looks like it's painted on the canvas, the CGI, and I love to see that. That's how some of these MCU cosmic films are starting to get, where it literally looks like a damn painting. Like, that is insane to see. Really, the MCU, I think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is a worthy sequel to the first one. I just don't think it's as good as the first one. I think with a better story and maybe a little less comedy, I think this film probably would have ended up being better than the first one, but still, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is a fantastic watch. Coming in at number 9 is Ant-Man. Now, I kept going back and forth with my 8 and 9. It was so tough. But I think I finally decided Ant-Man's going to be number 9, just for the fact that it's such a tiny film, and pun intended, it is a very tiny film, but it's a ton of fun. I mean, the cast in here, the story, I love the heist element, because I'm a big heist fan. If you guys have been watching my channel for a while, you guys know I love heist movies, and Ant-Man is a heist movie. This is one of those films I can always rewatch. Anything 9 and up, I can rewatch any of these films anytime and absolutely love the hell out of them. And Ant-Man really is just a ton of fun. The humor in here works almost every single 100% time. There's not one joke that falters for me, and that has to give big credit to Peyton Reed, the director, and also I have to give big credit to the writer Edgar Wright, who they kept some of his elements of his script in there, which I remember when this film was coming out, I was like, man, Peyton Reed, the guy who did the cheerleader film, he's gonna direct Ant-Man? No, like, I don't want that. I want Edgar Wright to direct this film, but I have to say, like, I had to take that back. Peyton Reed did a fantastic job directing this film, and Edgar Wright, like, you know, his feel is still in there. I would have loved to see what his film would have looked like, but it's different, and I don't mind that at all. Really, like, the only few things that boggle this film down is the origin story. To tell it kind of takes time to get into it, which kind of makes the pacing a little bit slow and odd at times, but like I said, the humor works. Michael Douglas is fantastic, and here's Paul Rudd. Who knew Paul Rudd could be a superhero? Come on, like, let's say this. Paul Rudd is Scott Lang in here. He's Ant-Man. Paul Rudd's muscular now, he's badass, and he actually has some great fight scenes in here with Yellow Jacket, which I thought Corey Stoll played a really good villain in Yellow Jacket. I thought he was pretty good. He's one of the better in the MCU again. That Thomas the Tank Engine fight scene is just memorable as hell. This film had a lot of memorable things to it, especially when you go to Michael Peña's character, who gives some of the best dialogue and some of the best chemistry with Scott Lang's character. I just loved their banter back and forth, and that was some of the best things in here. And then do not forget about Angeline Lilly. She is great, and I cannot wait to see what she does in as the Wasp character in the next film, because Wasp is a really intriguing character. I've always liked her character, especially out of the MCU. Some people might disagree. Some of you guys might not like the film, and I totally understand. So that's why we have the comments. Tell me below and tell me why you don't like Ant-Man. Coming in at number 8 is Doctor Strange. Now, I put Doctor Strange above Ant-Man is this one tiny little reason. Again, I'm with the puns. But I put it above it because I thought Doctor Strange did such a fantastic job building an origin story for a character who could kind of be convoluted and kind of boring at times, to say the least. Make the film to be one of the most slower MCU films, but I don't find that to be a problem, to say the least. I think it works for the Doctor Strange character because there's so much to his character that you need to really delve in and bring it all, because it's throwing so much information all at you at once, and it's a little, like I said, confusing at times to some people. That's what works for this MCU film, because if you don't have that feeling, if you don't have all the details, you're going to be lost in when he's using his powers, which, let me say, again, this is one of the most beautiful films, one of the most visually appealing films in the MCU, and very different, just stylized different. I think Scott Derrickson, he's a horror director, and seeing those horror vibes come in here, great. 100% great. I love seeing that. I mean, just seriously, like, it looks like Inception times 200 in here. The Ancient One, played by Tilda Swinton, is one of my favorite characters in the MCU as well. I think she's so fantastic and such a badass. Wong is funny as hell. I can't wait to see what he does in Infinity War. Honestly, the villain for here, played by Mads Mikkelsen, I don't hate him. Again, I think he did a really good job in here, but the thing for me is that the script boggles him down to the point where you don't get enough of him to really feel a menacing purpose to him, which I feel like if we get just a couple more scenes with him, he easily would be right up there with any other MCU villains, but he kind of just stays in that middle part where he doesn't get a lot to do. I actually thought the score was great in here. I thought the CGI, again, is immaculate, just beautiful, and just filled with tons of colors, and just the way Doctor Strange's powers, those astral projection fight scenes, that one in the hospital it's jaw-dropping. Like, those are the scenes that got me goosebumps, and there's such a different style that this is why this film deserves to be so high up, because of just how different the film is in general. Like I said, some people might disagree with this wholly, but I think Doctor Strange is one of the better films in the MCU, and it takes an origin story, really hard to tell, but tells it in a very compelling way, but also makes us intrigued to want to know the character. And this is another thing. I absolutely love what they did with the romance aspect of this film, because it's not heavily overbearing to the film, but it's there and you believe in it, and I like seeing that. And then we also have Chiwetel Ejiofor. I can't forget to talk about him, because Chiwetel Ejiofor is a fantastic actor, and again, he didn't get a lot to do in this film, but I feel like later down the road in these films we're going to get more of him, and I can't wait to see what the actor does. Alright, and coming in at number 7 is the film that started off the MCU, Iron Man. I love Iron Man. I mean, I can't even say anything against this. This is one of my favorite movie-going experiences of all time, because I didn't even know what to think of the film at the time. Robert Downey Jr., he was one of those actors that I remember seeing in Weird Science, and I really liked him. I liked seeing him in Chaplin, but then he's gonna be Iron Man? What? Iron Man's this B-rated hero that no one really gives a shit about. He's in a Tin Man. Then I see the film, and I'm like, oh my god, I was totally wrong. This film was directed by Jon Favreau. Totally succeeded. Any other film kicked off the MCU with such a blast. One of the best end credit scenes. Let's say that when Nick Fury walks out, Samuel L. Jackson walks out, sees that Iron Man, and tells him about the Avengers initiative. It's just great. But this film didn't rely on setup. It relied on just telling an origin story for a character that is great. And of course, Jeff Bridges in here as Obadiah Stone, which I will say his villain's alright. I just kind of get annoyed that they have to use the same exact thing that he has to have an Iron Man suit, just like Iron Man does. But again, the action sequences in here are fun. They're not the best in the MCU, but they're fun. And that's what this film is. It's very energetic. It's enticing. There's really nothing bad about this film at all. I think the whole story works overall. It's all really good. It tells a really good origin story. Robert Downey Jr., of course, kicked off this MCU with so much energy and flair to Tony Stark. I love it. I love Stan Lee's cameo in here. I think it's fantastic. The CGI looked really well, and it still does really hold up for the most part. And then of course we have the AC/DC blasting in this film, Black Sabbath, all that stuff. Like, it's just a ton of fun. Iron Man is one of the staples for the MCU, and it has to be high up on your list for that reason. Coming in at number 6, I might get some shit for this, but it's the first Avengers. No, before you get all, why is this not number 1? I love the first Avengers. I love this film. And really, I only have one con with the film, and that is, I think it takes a bit for the film to get going. And I say that because I feel like there's like 20 minutes of fluff in here that you could easily rip out and throw for a more tightly niched film. But Joss Whedon directed this film, and you feel it in the humor, you feel it in the lines in here. They're all fantastic. The action sequences, the Battle of New York, is one of the best battle sequences I've ever seen in even a film in general. That one scene of it, the camera going all around and you seeing all the heroes loading up and getting ready to fight, it gives me goosebumps every time I see that scene. It just really, like, I'm getting goosebumps even thinking about it, because also the score for this film is easily the best in the MCU. Hands down, I don't care what you say. We didn't know how this was gonna work out. You're gonna have all these characters teaming up. You have to give each one balance between stuff, and they did it perfectly. Joss Whedon knew what he was doing, and I love seeing that. Because, of course, if you've seen Firefly, he has to balance that same thing with a bunch of characters. But, of course, we have a ton of heavy hitters in here. And for the most part, every single one of them got something to do. Hawkeye, most notably, didn't. But that's why we got Avengers Age of Ultron. We got some more stuff to do in there, so I'm not going to complain. But Avengers is such a ton of fun. The action sequences are fantastic. The banter of seeing all these characters together. We got Thor, Captain America talking, RDJ, Tony Stark talking with them, Bruce Banner talking. This is the first time we ever got Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo, great job as the Hulk. I mean, he stole the role. The Hulk pretty much stole the whole movie, and who knew I would say that? Because Hulk's always been one of my least favorite Avengers, and that's a lot to say. The Chitauri is a very menacing species. They're cool to look at. Their design is really cool. They're not just boring and bland, and then Loki's a really good villain in here. I can't tell you how many times I got goosebumps throughout the first Avengers. This is the film that really just brought it all together and made me realize how much I love the Avengers and Marvel. It made me love and made me see that, like, even though I've had this appreciation for the comic books for so long, it totally worked out in the end, and I love seeing that. And number 5 is going to be Captain America Civil War. Now, this used to be, like, my favorite movie of all time, but there's some other films that have come out before it, and I have to talk about those. But Captain America Civil War, the reason this film works is because it's so dark and brooding. It does have a fun element to it, but for me, the airport action sequence is right up there with the Avengers Battle of New York sequence. I didn't know what to think. When I heard it was going to be in an airport, I was like, seriously, an airport fight scene? But it's 27 minutes of fighting. Yeah, you heard me right. It's 27 minutes of fighting. I've looked that up. That is a long-ass action sequence. But the reason that works is because we're getting different characters fighting. You have Black Panther fighting this person. Black Panther's awesome in here. The introduction to him. I cannot wait to see Black Panther's movie because of him in this film. He is so badass. Then we have Spider-Man swinging in back into the MCU. Tom Holland is Spider-Man. For the 12 minutes he's on this film, he almost stole the whole film because he is the perfect Spider-Man. I mean, swinging in, kicking ass. You know, you have Ant-Man turning into Giant Man. That was awesome. Civil War just brought everything a nerd would love and threw it into one. You're just like, I love this film already. I think the moral dilemma between Tony Stark and Captain America, because even if you go in thinking I'm going to be on Tony Stark's side or I'm going to be on Captain America's side, you go in thinking that, you start going back and forth being like, but he has a good reason for why I should join him, and he has a good reason for why I should join him. And I liked the back and forth where even the movie pulled you to those sides. At least it did for me. And I like seeing that a film could actually bring me that way, because when I went into the film I was like, oh, I'm totally Iron Man's side. Like, I love Iron Man, I like his team, I'm gonna totally be on his side. But then you go to Captain America and you're like, but I get what you're saying, Cap, so I might actually be on your side too. And I loved seeing that banter just between both of them. I think that was such a great story element. And then some people give Zemo shit, the villain for here, the villain. I liked Zemo. I thought he was intriguing, played by Daniel Bruhl. I think he was really good. Now, sometimes when it came to a storyline, it does stop and halt the pacing real fast, but I thought Zemo was really intriguing. I thought the Russo brothers did a great job making this film still a Captain America sequel, but feeling bigger and making it feel like an Avengers 2.5, which is something that can be really hard to balance, but for some reason, the Russo brothers did it. This is easily, again, some of the best action sequences throughout this whole film. They all feel brutal, grisly, and gritty, and I think that might be because John Wick came over and did this film, so maybe that kind of had to help with it, but really, Civil War is an immaculate film that is just beautiful, to say the least. I love Civil War. Coming in at number 4, I'm sure you guys were wondering where this film is, and that's Thor Ragnarok. Yes, the film that I said that was going to be in this list, and so I did my review last night. I wake up this morning, and the more I think about it, I'm watching some reviews before posting this video, and, you know, I'm like, man, the more I think about it, I really loved Thor Ragnarok. The more I start thinking about it, like, it easily is one of my favorite MCU films, and it's because it's so much fun, and some people might be like, stop saying it's so much fun, but it is fun. And it has some emotion to it. It has some dramatic elements to it. And it has great humor in here. I don't think it's the funniest MCU villain. I don't think it's the funniest MCU film, but I still think it's a really funny film. There's the Hulk in here is god funny as shit. I loved him, and same with Jeff Goldblum. They both have some of the best comedic in here. Jeff Goldblum plays himself pretty much, and he's great. Of course, Chris Hemsworth comes back, Loki comes back. They're all great, but it's really the newcomers in here that really stand out for me. Valkyrie especially. Tessa Thompson, if you watch my review, she's my woman crush now. I loved Valkyrie. I want to see more of her. And then Taika Waititi's character Korg. I loved Korg. Like, some people I know, I've talked to some people and they're like, I hated Korg, but Korg was funny. He came to be some of the best elements as well of the film. The action sequences are brutal, to say the least. They're brutal in here. They feel like a Lord of the Rings mixed with a Star Wars. Like, that's what this film feels like. Lord of the Rings mixed with Star Wars. If you like that, you're gonna like this film. And I just like the sci-fi elements they threw in here. I like the Lord of the Rings mythology and all that kind of stuff they throw into here that's like with the Asgard. Now, I found Hela to kind of be a disappointing villain. Not because Cate Blanchett's bad. I think Cate Blanchett is great as the role of Hela. I just didn't think we got enough of her. I think she needed more to do per se, but she was a badass to say the least when we did get to see her. We're coming to my number 3, and my number 3, you guys are going to hate me, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I cannot tell you, I have no complaints with this film. This is like a perfect film for me. Any film above this is perfect for me as well. I loved Captain America the Winter Soldier because coming off, and when it was coming out, I wasn't really excited for it because I heard the directors from Community, the Russo brothers are directing this film. What? And then again, then you see that it's like, Captain America is not really my favorite hero, but I wasn't really anticipating, but I still saw it opening night, and I remember walking out saying, that is one of the best comic book movies, and even one of the best films I've seen in of my life. The Winter Soldier, the story for here is immaculate and amazing and just something to wonder how great it could have been. Like, how is the story so good? But Chris Evans guides the movie away. He brings in Falcon as well, and Falcon is a great character to just bring in. But I think the reason this movie works is because of the villain for this. I don't want to really say anything because if you've never seen the Winter Soldier for some reason, there is a villain in here. Winter Soldier's great, but there's also another villain in here, and I think all that just jived together and worked perfectly. S.H.I.E.L.D., the whole element of seeing more of S.H.I.E.L.D. is great. The backstory kind of between them both. Nick Fury, I mean, it's great to see him actually enroll. And some of the action sequences in here, again, up there in some of the best in the MCU. The elevator fight scene, the car chase with Nick Fury and the gun, the Gatling gun, that just awesome. Nick Fury's a badass. And Chris Evans really proved here that he could lead a film and make it totally work. And easily, I could totally understand why this could be your number 1. For me, Winter Soldier is just great. The villain's fantastic. The scorpion sequences, they're really memorable. Like, even to this day, if I've never seen the film again just that one time, I would still remember these scenes. I have watched the film, though. Trust me, I've watched it multiple times. And I like the end credit scenes for this film. I think it structured something so great to come forth into the MCU and really define that the Russo brothers, this is what really made me say that, like, it doesn't matter what really director hops onto a project, whether it be the Russo brothers or Peyton Reed, it really just doesn't matter to me. As long as, like, Marvel believes in them, I believe in them. That's to say a lot, because the Russo brothers, like I said, they never did anything big before this, but you can totally tell they're comic book fans, and when they made this film, this is a comic book lover's dream. Guys, we're at number 2, the runner-up to my number 1, and number 2 is going to kind of be Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, some of you guys might have a problem with this, but I want to reissue that. Spider-Man is my favorite superhero of all time, and this is the adaptation that I've been wanting to see for the longest time, because I liked the other Spider-Man films. I liked Tobey Maguire's films. I liked Andrew Garfield's films for some reasons, I guess, but I liked just seeing the Spider-Man character, but I've never felt like he was the true adaptation that I read in the comics or that I got from, like, everything that I've wanted to see. And I felt like Tom Holland's Spider-Man, Tom Holland's the best Spider-Man. He is hands down the best Spider-Man in my opinion. But the thing that this film does so well is it makes it a small film. There really are no stakes to this film. There's not a lot of grittiness to this film like some of the other Spider-Man films have. There's really no big action set pieces of him swinging around a ton. Well, there's one, but there's nothing of him swinging around New York. But the reason this film works so well is because, one, it feels like a Spider-Man film. They kept it in high school. It works perfectly because you believe that Tom Holland is in high school. You see all of his friends, all of his high school friends. Ned is the best friend that you always wanted to have. And Spider-Man Homecoming, I've seen this film like 12 or 13 times. I saw it like 5 times in theaters and the rest at home. I love Spider-Man Homecoming. I can rewatch this film every single day. Maybe it's just because I relate to Tom Holland's character, Peter Parker's character, so much. Or maybe it's just because I love Spider-Man's character so much. The humor right there works. It's not that dark of a film. Aunt May is hot as shit, and she's great. Marissa Tomei is fantastic as Aunt May. And then I gotta say, Michael Keaton. I don't know if it's because he played the Vulture, but when they announced, I was like, Vulture, he's kind of like the most boring Spider-Man villain for me. But Michael Keaton brought the role. Made it fantastic. I mean, Michael Keaton is fantastic as the Vulture and easily top 3 favorite MCU villains for me. And I don't know if it's just because of how great Michael Keaton was in the role or the script was written to give him that much to do, but Vulture is fantastic. The Vulture, you actually can sympathize with at the same time, understand what he's trying to do, but at the same time, you're still a bad guy, dude. Spider-Man Homecoming is filled with tons of Easter eggs, some good action sequences, great score, but just a ton of heart and humor. And that's why it's easily going to be at my number 2, just for the fact that this is my favorite Spider-Man movie. This is my favorite character of Spider-Man, favorite interpretation of Spider-Man. I know some people might not like that, but come on, guys. If you're a diehard Spider-Man fan, I think Spider-Man Homecoming is the movie for you. Well, guys, we're at my number 1, and what could it be? What could my number 1 possibly be? Because there's one film I haven't mentioned yet, and I'm trying to remember what it is. I'm joking, guys. I know what it is. Drumroll, Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy is still my favorite MCU film to date. I say this because James Gunn made such a surprise film. I knew who the Guardians were before this, but no one else did. Everyone told me this film's gonna suck. They're gonna have a talking raccoon and a talking tree. How are you supposed to make a good film? Screw you. Because Guardians of the Galaxy is easily the best MCU film for a lot of reasons. The humor works, the story works, and the reason this film works so well, it's 2 hours long and we're getting introduced to like 5 new characters and we're having to learn all about them and this whole world they're in and believe it. And it works because James Gunn, the director, made it work. I love Guardians of the Galaxy so much, the characters, the chemistry, and I even like the relationship aspect that they start pushing together between Star-Lord and Gamora in here. Even though it's not fully there, you believe it. It would work. Chris Pratt comes in, the lovable guy from Parks and Rec. You don't know what he's gonna do. Greatest Star-Lord, steals the role away. Drax, Dave Bautista comes in, a wrestler? Really? He's gonna be in a superhero film? Fantastic as Drax, one of the easily the best parts. Zoe Saldana is great as Gamora. Bradley Cooper, I thought his voice would be distracting as Rocket Raccoon. No, he's perfect. Vin Diesel is Groot. I am Groot. Can't really say. Groot is great. I love Groot in this. The MCU really just... I just love their cosmic universe they're building, and Guardians of the Galaxy showed that. The worlds they go to, nowhere, that planet, the giant celestial head is great. The collector, Benicio del Toro, was mysterious, but I wanted more of him. The Easter eggs pondered throughout the whole film are great. Stanley's cameo is great. The worlds they built in here, and some of the action sequences are brilliant and beautiful. This is a sci-fi film at heart in the MCU. It's not a superhero film, but it's great. It is a space opera, and maybe it's just because I'm a big sci-fi fan. Maybe that's why I'm my number 1. I love Guardians of the Galaxy for that reason. I cannot tell you how much I love this film. To me, this is in my top 10 of all time. I just am such a big fan of Guardians of the Galaxy, of every single thing to it. And Ronan the Accuser, some people might not like his villain. I like what Lee Pace did with him. I thought he was pretty menacing at times. Sometimes there's a little overacting at times with him. Maybe that's just the direction or maybe how the script was written. But overall, Guardians of the Galaxy is almost a flawless film in my opinion. It's so much fun. It's energetic and carries... God, one of the best soundtracks in all the movies I've ever seen in my life. And that doesn't say anything about Volume 2's, because I actually like Volume 2's soundtrack. But Volume 1, such a great, and just how the music weaved in perfectly into each of the scenes. Guardians of the Galaxy is my favorite MCU film, and I love it. Guys, that's my ranking. I already hit every 17 Marvel movies. Insane to think, again, 17 MCU films. And next year, guys, we're adding 3 more to make it 20. 20 MCU films. It's great to see how much they're building up. I love seeing this, and really the MCU is such a fun thing to do, guys. This was a ton of fun to make, and I'm so glad I got to tell you guys my ranking list. But of course, guys, what's yours? That's the most important thing. So comment down below and tell me. Again, if you haven't yet, tell me what your list is. What did you think of my list? Did you disagree? Did you not? What would you switch around? I want to hear it down below in the comments, guys. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe, especially if you're new. I want to see that like button go up. I want to see my subscribe go up, because here we love talking movies. So if you love talking movies too, this is a safe place to talk about it. We never get mad at each other in the comments. We love talking about it. And if you're a shitbag who's going to comment down below and be mean, then you're just going to get banned. We don't need that in this society. We need some funness, and that's what the comments are for. So make sure to comment down below, and let's talk all Marvel superheroes and stuff. And as always, guys, make sure to look out for more reviews soon. And as always, stay classy and have a great rest of your day.